Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
So we are in the process of mixing up our format just a little bit. One thing we've commented on to each other is that we're having to dig around to find books that meet themes, let alone also coming up with themes has been sometimes a little bit of a challenge. Because we don't want to get down into the weeds of like books with a male main character who has blue eyes. Like that's not.
I totally have a list for that.
That's not how we want to theme our episodes. We feel like that's a little much. And so while we like the challenge and we're going to keep doing that some, we're like, we're readers in addition to being authors, but this is really more about us as readers. And one of the things we do as readers might surprise you is that we read. Who knew? So, we were finding these books for the podcast on this theme was getting in the way of reading what we wanted to read in CCR. And so we're like, you know what? We're going to have an episode a month where we talk about the CCR we've been reading lately. That way, when one of our favorite authors releases a book, we can bump it to the top of the pile and read it without feeling like we're stealing time from, whatever theme we're trying to cover for that particular week. So there's no theme today. It's just top picks from our recent reading. And, it's not a super big secret that we record in advance. So some of the books may feel like they're seasonally inappropriate when we get to them, but they're still recent to us. So at the time of recording, as of our recording date, they were recent enough that they hit the list. So there you go. Recent reads in CCR for all of us. So Valerie, you want to take your first one and go first?
Sure. One of the things that I have read relatively recently is the Save the Date multi-author collection. And I don't even know, it's probably not even fair to talk about it because it's probably not available anymore. But if it's in your TBR, go dig it out and read it. You'll find that the stories are very different from each other. And they weren't all my favorites because they can't all be my favorites because life's too short. But there were two in particular that I really quite enjoyed. And so there's quite a few Inspy Romance authors that were in that collection, as well as two friends who have since passed away. So that made it kind of bittersweet reading what I knew were their very last penned stories, and that's Marion Uckerman and Shoshana Gabriel. Yeah. But my two favorites out of the group was Liwen Y Ho's story, One Vow for September. And it kind of cracked me up because the heroine is a writer with an unconventional assignment for her newspaper or magazine, in that she's supposed to write about how to go about creating a venue and event for renewal of marriage vows. And so the guy in her office turns out to need to come along and pretend to be her husband when they go searching out all these places. And of course, through the course of it all, they fall for each other. And it's really funny and sweet. I enjoyed that one. The second one I really enjoyed was by another Inspy Romance author, Jan Thompson, and it's called Time for Me. And it's a Friends to More romance in which the heroine runs an art gallery that's struggling financially, and the hero is a sculptor, and she's trying to talk him into putting some of his work in this gallery that she's running. And so of course they fall in love. But that's okay because hello, it's romance. So I don't know. Did either of you read that collection? Or
it's on my Kindle. I have it.
Well, there you go. Read it.
You're going to laugh when I talk about one of the books soon. But anyway.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to it yet. I think I talked on our box set we did a box set episode. Box sets scare me because I am too, I think the polite term is OCD. And I feel like I have to read from start to finish in order every single thing. And so when I see these box sets with, it's a big one. It's like 14, it's 12. Yeah.
One for every month of the year.
Okay. Which would make sense. Yeah. I look at it and I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready to invest that yet. So it's there. I have it. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
I grabbed it and jumped in, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate to mention that I did not, in fact, read every single story. I read most of them.
That's more normal than my way, I think.
I read most of them, and some of them I enjoyed more than others. And if you're a Save the Date author, I probably loved yours. I probably did. But Liwen's and Jan's kind of stuck out to me as ones that I just enjoyed quite a lot.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, pardon me, Narelle, what's your first one?
Well, this is so funny. So, I mean, we could talk about any book in the world. Like, we have no paradigms. But, of course, what book have I picked is Retying the Knot by Liwen Y Ho, which is book 1. And the one Valerie talked about is book 3. And so when I looked at Save the Date, I said, all right, so Beth has her own little quirks about box sets. My quirk is I don't like reading books out of order. I don't like to read book 3 before I read book 2 and book 1. So I looked at that and I thought, I need to go back and find the original books, and I need to start at the beginning. So that's my little quirk.
Funny, because it's totally standalone.
I do that too.
I know.
I will tell you.
I just like reading my orders.
No, it drives me crazy. And sometimes I don't notice, and I'll read it in a box set, and then I'll go and I'm like, wait, this was book 4? And then I'm mad and I'm like, oh, drives me crazy. So yeah.
That's very sad for both of you. I feel for you totally. Not
there's always something.
Wrong,
No, I'm totally with Beth on this one, because if you don't start at the beginning, there's always something that you don't appreciate. You miss those little nuggets of gold if you read out of order. And
well, I'll tell you what, the problem with that is, that even if it's been 6 months since the previous book came out, I've forgotten like 98% of it because I read so much, and because my brain has enough trouble retaining the stuff that I'm working on without trying to retain other people's stories. So it's like reading something new to me anyway, and I don't have time to read. I don't have time to read all the stories from the beginning when a new one comes out. So I know I miss stuff.
But if you weren't supposed to start at the beginning, then in The Sound of Music, there would not be a song that begins. Yes. Let's start at the very beginning. It's the very best place to start.
I mean, I'm clearly wrong.
No, it's just but I also I'm a self-confessed binge reader. So I mean, I used to read all the Janet Ivanovich books, and when I first started reading them would have been late 90s. I think I found it when book 4 or book 5 released. So every year a new book would come out, and I would start at number 1 and work through. And then we got to about book 10, and I would read back about 5 books. And then I probably got to about book 15, I'd read back about 3 books. And I think I stopped reading by about book 20. But they used to release every July, and so I would buy it each July when it released. But I just love those little nuggets. And it's what makes a book really fun to me, is to have those series connections. But that's just me.
It is one reason why I do like to buy author complete series, or 1 through 3 and 4 through 6, and read them straight through. But I usually do that if I haven't already read any of them, although sometimes I have read book 1 and then I find the box set on sale or something. But
sure.
But then it is all fresh.
Yes.
Yep.
But anyway, we'll get back to talking about Liwen's book.
Right,
We get so distracted on this podcast. Back to the topic. So I just love the setup. So this series, it's characters that are around 40 or in their 40s. So that's a really fun to start off with. And I just love the setup of this book. So the hero and heroine were friends at college, and that's in the Bay Area. It's set in San Francisco area. And they were really good friends, and he needed to marry someone because his mother was going to lose their house if he didn't marry. marry after there was a death in the family for an inheritance. And she agreed as his friend to marry him. And then somehow along the way, there was a wedding night, and somehow there ended up being a pregnancy. And so now the story opens with the heroine, whose name is Piper. That's right. It's Peter and Piper. I should remember that. So Piper's on a plane. She's been in New York City. She was doing medicine when they met. He's an ophthalmologist, I think, and she's a pediatrician. And so she's on this plane talking to this crazy hairdresser lady that just starts randomly talking to her on the plane. And so we hear about what's happened. And she's on her way to see her 16-year-old daughter that she really hasn't had a lot to do with. And there's a whole lot of reasons as to why that she hasn't been able to have a close relationship with her. And it was just a fabulous story. And he's just adorable, the hero as well. And their daughter is, I just love teen characters that have lots of sass and say what they think. And yeah, so it's just
they're not your personal children.
Yeah. Oh no, I have one of those. So I'm used to it. I have a very outspoken daughter. Oh, don't. There's no putting things wrapped up nicely when she talks to me. I hear it all. But anyway, so it was just a really fun story, and I just really enjoyed it, and it was funny, and it was it ticked all the boxes for me. And when you're reading for pleasure, you just want to find something that's fun and just dive in. And I read the book in an afternoon. Like I read it straight through. Yeah,
I like
quick.
those
And
when you don't want to put them down.
I enjoyed that one of Liwen's as well.
Yes.
So have you read book 2?
No, it's next
We'll
because I've got to read in order.
Yeah. Next month.
I have to read in order. So I had to read book 1 first. And then if I forget the details, I'll go and skim it again. So it's all back in my memory again.
So now book 2, and then you can read the box set. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't touch the box set until I get all these. Yeah.
All the background.
I go to Goodreads and check out that's why I use Goodreads, because I'll go to Goodreads to see what was in what box and have I got this, because sometimes in my Kindle I'll search for the author and it won't show up if it's a box and there's too many authors. And so I always buy box sets, because who doesn't? Like, it's just what you do. They're 99 cents for all these stories.
Yeah.
And then I just get lost in the
for
box.
99 cents. There's bound to be one that's good in there.
Yes. And then you just get lost in box set land trying to work out how they all fit together.
Yes.
And yes, but anyway, so that was a good story and a good series, and I'm looking forward to reading more.
It was a good story.
That's
I read it and I remember
list.
quite a bit. Beth, what have you been reading?
So I am late to the game, but I found the Discovered by Love series by Carla Laureano, which is a series that she, I think she indie published. It's Starstruck, Snowbound, and Sunswept. And then I was looking on Goodreads, and apparently that's numbers 2, 3, and 4. And there's a number 1 that maybe is a newsletter magnet. So I'm like, dang it.
So
now
now
first 2 of those.
I think it's Jilted is number 1.
Yes, Jilted is the first one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jilted's the first one.
And I think it's her newsletter magnet, and I don't think it's for sale. I think you have to join her newsletter to do that. And I have a love-hate relationship with newsletters, so I haven't gotten there yet. So I did read these out of order, but it doesn't matter really. They're connected more by theme, I think, than like seeing characters in them. So, but I had read Starstruck not too long ago. And then I think she recently released the 3rd one, Sunswept. And I was like, have I read this series? So I went and I was looking, and I'm so glad I found them. I love Carla's books. They're always like sitting down with friends. Her characters just are always so relatable and real. And I'm like, I want to be friends with these people. And it was kind of fun. Snowbound, reading it, reminded me.
Last one, right?
It's the middle one. It's the middle one. It's in the high country of Colorado, and they get stuck. It reminded me a lot of Provenance, because there are some similarities there. Because they're going to this old house that needs a complete redo. They're both architects who are vying for the job. And also they were rivals in architecture school. And she had this like unrequited crush on him, and he kind of squashed her like a bug and betrayed her professionally. So anyway, that's kind of fun And so it was fun reading that and
Good
thinking,
story.
I'm like, I need to reread Providence. I need to put that
It's
on
connected.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, because you know how in Providence there's two towns I talk about. There's a town that's cut off.
Yeah.
I think there's a connection with one of those books in the series. And now I haven't got it written down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look for the name of the town that no one can get to by road in Providence, that town is connected into, I think, that series.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
I now need to reread Provenance because I enjoyed especially Snowbound so much that I'm like, I want to go back there to those people and that story. So anyway, I read those three, just one, boom, 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 one after the other.
I read the first.
The best way to read.
I haven't read the third.
Okay. Well, the third is very fun. It's in Florida. So, hey, beach, you would love it. It's in Miami. And it's also super fun. It starts out, the girl is a realtor in town for a conference, and she goes into her Airbnb that she rented, and there's a man in the bathroom getting ready. And
wonderful.
Yeah. Turns out that he is also thinking that he has rented this Airbnb. And there's so much going on in the town that there's nothing else available. So
of course there isn't.
Sort of thrown together. Yeah. Which is super fun. Yeah. All right, Valerie, do you have another one?
I do. I have, because we've had Valentine's Day here recently, I thought, oh, I wonder what Valentine's Day books there are out there that I haven't read yet, which turns out to be quite a few. But I came across the Valentine Verse by Joann Durgin, and I realized it had been a while since I'd read a Joann Durgin, so I thought I would give this one a whirl. And I did find it quite interesting. It's more philosophical. That sounds terrible. It's more witty banter and more dialogue and less action than some stories, but the banter was witty, so it's fun. Thornton is a man who does a lot of traveling on his job. He builds prototypes for the Navy and for other private things, spaceshipy type things, because I don't know.
It's okay.
I can go into a lot of detail about what he did.
Not about that.
He believes in true love, except that he hasn't found it yet. And he's back in town in Minnesota because his grandmother had a stroke, and he's very close with his grandmother. They're the only family each other has. And the heroine, who has a name, Vera, she is the grandmother's speech therapist. So she's in and out of the house several times a week to help with that. So that's why they can't get away from each other, although they mostly don't really want to. Vera does not believe in true love in that sense. So most of the story is him trying to find ways to convince her that that they're destined to be together, and she doesn't believe in destiny. So it was kind of amusing. He's funny, he's poetic, goes with the philosophy type thing. And she's kind of has to rethink her position on true love as the town is like aiming for the big Valentine's ball of the year and stuff. So yeah, it's amusing. If you want
cool.
a Valentine's story, then it might not be too late. I mean, because you can read those any time of year, just like Christmas ones, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Joann's books are always fun. Yeah. So, Narelle, what's your next one?
My next one is Reclaiming Hope by Carolyn Miller. So this one is her third one in the Independence Island series. And the first 6 have blue covers and the next 6 have salmon covers. And this one has a yellow cover. So it's book number 18. And I believe there's another 6 coming out very soon.
Right. And that's
early
6
2022.
different authors working in that series. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shatona Harvig, I think, is the that leads out each of the series. Yeah. So this one is set in the islands off the Carolinas. And if you've read the first book of Caroline's, which is Restoring Fairhaven, you get to see Max and Sam again, so who are married. And Callie, this is Callie's story. So Callie was in the first book. She was Max's personal assistant. He's the reclusive author who is no longer reclusive once he met Sam.
You have to pull those reclusive guys out eventually.
Right.
Yes. And so the way the story's set up is you actually have the hero in the second book in the series, which was Regaining Mercy. So Dermot from Regaining Mercy, Dermot and Callie go to this house on I'm trying to think of which island it is. It's gone. I didn't write it down. Well, the island that the series is based on, because there's this big house and gardens that have been wrecked in a hurricane.
Right.
And so the owners, it's their holiday house, their vacation house. They're very wealthy and they live on the mainland, and this is their holiday house that they go to. So they are looking for someone who can help to fix their garden that's been completely wrecked by the hurricane that's come through. And so Callie and Dermot go out to do the quote, and the guy who's their son is a pro surfer. Someone totally different to the type of person Callie would normally go for. And the first scene in this book is just hilarious. She's in a cafe and he happens to be there, and this quite interesting situation happens. And so he's already noticed her from this situation, this little spectacle that had happened in this cafe. And so they meet again, and he's very interested in her, and she's like, oh, you're not really the type of person I think that I'd be interested in. And so he says, well, go, yes, go look me up. You can go look me up. This is mine. This is what I do. And of course, she nearly falls over in shock when she looks him up and works out who he actually is. And so it was just a really fun story. And there was a secret that sort of threw everything into chaos towards the end. And I just really enjoyed it. I think surfy heroes are great. So it probably comes from growing up on the northern beaches. And I went to school with a world champion surfer, so Lane Beachley. So I sort of, that sort of world isn't massively unfamiliar. I just thought it was so fun.
If your last name is Beachley, do you have a choice about being a professional surfer?
She has a fabulous life story, because when she was surfing back in the 80s, like, it wasn't what girls weren't meant to be doing that, and so she really was in a man's world. She's a very, very interesting story. But anyway, back to Carolyn's story. I'm getting so distracted. Yeah, so this one is really fun, and the surfer guy has a broken leg, so that's why he's not on the circuit with his mates running around. And the faith element, Caroline's book's always a winner when it comes to having a nice organic faith element in the story as well. She never fails to deliver on that, so I recommend going back to the Independence Island series because they're fun books.
Cool. I haven't done much in those.
I think
maybe one day.
Yeah, I've read a couple by Tabitha Bolden that are in that series. I don't know that I've read any of the others, but again, they're on my list.
Somewhere.
List.
Mine too. The list.
Yeah. So my next one is actually one that Narelle mentions on the podcast enough that I was like, okay, I have to read it. So was All Arranged by Meredith Resce. And actually I read all three of the Luella Lindley Licensed to Meddle series. I had read the first one last year on her recommendation, but I went ahead and got the rest of them because I'm like, I need to finish out the series. And All Arranged, we talked about in the contractor, the tradie episode, because the hero is a builder, and it's a marriage of convenience and an arranged marriage, which is really kind of fun. I liked that. Was what pushed me over the edge to getting it, is Narelle talking about how the families arranged the marriage, and the two parties basically have nothing to do with it. It's the family take care of it all, and they just they're like, okay, fine, because I'm terrible at doing this myself, so I'll trust you. And then what I was
hard one to pull off, I would think.
It would be, and she did an amazing job pulling that off. And then I was not prepared for, because the first two are very lighthearted in the series. The third one is not lighthearted. There are still moments of lightheartedness, but there is I'm going to risk the spoiler alert in the name of a trigger warning, because it took me completely by surprise. There is an infant loss. She has a stillbirth. But how they come back from that, which again, it's a romance, so you know they have to come back from it. It's really, really well done, but it was so well written that it was very hard to read in those dark moments. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yes,
I think I
you
do.
were bleeding for the characters.
Yes.
So if you are looking for a book, like you need a good cry and you need a book to help you get a good cry, I totally recommend All Arranged. And if you've read the first two in the Llewellyn Lindley series and you go into it thinking, oh, another fabulous, lighthearted matchmaking mom, no, not for all of it. So just be prepared. This one is much more serious, but I would say also it has a much stronger faith to it. I think because of the heaviness, you really see the faith shine through so well.
Yeah.
It was beautifully done.
Yeah. Did I mention that it had a heavier tone than the earlier two?
I
did in the book recommendation I wrote. Yeah.
If you did, I didn't hear it. I was completely unprepared. I was like, wait, what? What just happened? It's like, this is not what I needed today. This is not what I was anticipating at all.
Yeah.
But fabulous book.
Yes.
Really, really good. We've got time if everybody has another one. You have another one,
Sure.
Valerie?
When something else that I have recently read was the first two stories in Jessie. Let me try that again. Jessie Gussman, not Jessie anybody. Her Good Grief Idaho series. It's billed as romantic comedy. It looks like romantic comedy on the covers, and it kind of mostly is. I would say it's more amusing than laugh out loud funny, but comedy is really hard, isn't it? Because we don't all find the same things funny at all. I know I'm sometimes like, it's hilarious, and other people are like, what? So I get that. But the two books that I read, there's 4 out, I believe, but I've only read the first 2, Me and the Cute Catastrophe and Me and the Tidy Tornado. Jessie's books tend to be pretty solidly Christian. And so I wasn't sure with the romantic comedy type stuff, how strong that would be. And it is lighter than in her other books, but that's definitely there. So I did really appreciate that as well. The characters are involved in church and they talk about their faith some, but it's not, it's a long ways from preaching. Let's put it that way. But it's there. One of the things I found interesting was Good Grief, Idaho. I remember hearing about that way back when Love Finds You was doing their weird town name stuff. And I looked up where Good Grief, Idaho was, and it is like literally there is not even a shack left standing. Like it's nothing, it's nowhere. And
it's a real place, is it?
It was a real place.
Called Good Grief.
Called
Really?
Good Grief. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
I bet there's a story behind that.
Actually not too far from where I live in Canada.
Okay.
So I have been through Good Grief. You can't ever say you've been to it because there's nothing. So I found it very amusing to see this whole town with schools and coaches and a hospital and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And what part of Idaho are we in? Not in Good Grief.
That's funny.
But I mean, I've also created towns where none existed. So I just didn't call them by their original name, I guess. Anyway. So I don't know if that was a rant or what that was.
No, it's good. It's good. With romantic comedy, sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. Does this rely heavily on like pratfalls and slapstick, or is it not?
It opened up, the first one and I was kind of like, not too sure about you, because here we have these, we have sisters who, at least two of them are divorced. They're like 40-ish, and she sees this man that she'd had a crush on like 20 years before, and she's like crouched down behind her car hiding. And I'm like, and of course it's all Catastrophe. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Cute Catastrophe. So the first couple chapters, I was kind of like, I just really don't know, because the too stupid to live person is not my favorite character.
Mine either.
The one who just does off the chart stupid things. You're just like, seriously? I mean, that's what a 12-year-old would do, not a 40-year-old, right?
That's my issue with
as they
romantic
connected and it got going, I fell into the story more and enjoyed it more. So yeah.
Awesome. Narelle, one more.
Yes, well, I was reading Christmas. I read Christmas books in January as well.
That's allowed.
I read Christmas books, yes. So I'm going to just very quickly mention A Cross Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. And I liked that book more than I thought I was going to like it, which probably sounds strange. But I think I had a preconceived idea of what the story was going to be about, and it just went so much deeper than what I thought it was going to do, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And that's one thing I really love about Courtney's books, is that she'll often go back to something that's happened in the past, and there's been a particular situation that's had pretty big emotional consequences, and she'll really mine back through all the stuff, and you often find out the characters' perceptions of what happened don't necessarily line up with what really happened or what other people think happened. And
Right.
so the hero and heroine are stuck in a car, effectively doing a roundabout version of Route 66 from Santa Monica Pier to, is it Illinois? Or I think it's Illinois they went to. Yeah, went to Illinois, yeah. And she just doesn't want to be there. And he's like, oh, I've just got to put up with her. And and all these hilarious things happen along the way. And he has, what she doesn't know is he has a very intentional itinerary to do certain things for a certain reason. And what I really loved about that is all that stuff just came together and had a really satisfying ending. And that's one of the things I love in a book, is when all this stuff happens and it all makes perfect sense. You sort of go, that was so good. Yeah. So that's why I'm mentioning A Cross Country Christmas, because it had that big moment as well. And it's probably more, it's lighter on the faith element than maybe some of the other books that Courtney's written, but the faith element in the story was perfect for what it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. They can't all be the same. Shouldn't be.
Yes.
No. Yeah, no, that's a fun one. All right, so my last one, I actually did read these in December, but I'm still putting them as recent because it's recenter than last year. So, I mean, I guess technically it was last year, but like 2 years ago, they're recent. I'm going with them as being recent. And it's the We Three Kings trilogy by Kimberly Ray Jordan. So it's Child of Joy, Child of Love, and Child of Hope. It's 3 triplets, the King triplets, who are the heroes and heroines, and they all are pairing up with a single parent in one way or another surrounding this. Their family's business has a Christmas party for the company families, but then they invite these other single moms or single dads to join them, and you know, that sort of sparks a whole thing. And I loved how she sort of balanced the idea of, she had a lot of Santa, which I'm not usually a fan of, but she really balanced it well with playing with Santa because it's fun and seasonal, but really getting to the heart of Christmas when it mattered. So which I'm for, because I
read all those through the fall as well. They released in October, November, and December, I want to say, a few weeks apart. So yeah, the third one is on my list as well. Child of Hope was the last one I read of hers.
Yep. So yeah, they're fun and short. They're novellas. So if you want just a little hint of Christmas to get you back to Christmas, those are fun. I enjoyed them.
Yeah, of course I do too.
generally, if either Valerie or I say Kimberly Ray Jordan, we enjoyed the book because we really both like her a lot. So,
and I work on the assumption that I don't need to worry about Kimberly Ray Jordan's books because one of you are guaranteed to be talking about it.
Probably.
Well, apparently there's things you guys read that I don't as well. So,
yes,
it's fair. All right. So, does anybody have something that they feel like they just have to mention that was on their list that we didn't get to?
I think that wraps it up good enough for me.
All right. Excellent. So we'd love to hear what you've been reading. Drop us a comment and let us know what's been on your recent CCR pile. And we appreciate you joining us on Story Chats. You can find all the information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.